Hi, I'm Matt Peters, one of the founders of iSeekplant.com.au. I've invited Taylor from PSC Insurance to come and have a chat today because obviously iSeekplant's audience is contractors, builders, plan hire companies, suppliers to the construction sector. Insurance is an integral part of every one of those businesses, and it seems like there can be some confusion in this space. So we've invited Taylor to come along and just explain what's really important to consider with insurance. Make sure you're covered, and make sure that everyone's sort of on point when it comes to this topic. Taylor, thanks very much for coming.
Thanks, Matt. I'm glad to be here to explain the exciting world of insurance to everyone.
So for iSeekplant's audience, what are some of the types of insurance products they need to be particularly aware of and make sure that they're correctly covered?
Each business is different, so if you are a contractor, we really need to have a look at what your needs and requirements are. So there are various insurance products that you can consider, but the most important would be public liability and plant equipment insurance. So these covers provide basic cover for your business activities as well as protecting your assets. There's other policies you may need to consider, like your legal requirement to have workers' compensation insurance, or your contractual obligation to have personal accident or income protection. There's other policies that you might want to have a look at as well. So if you've got building and contents, having cover for those, general property insurance, contract works insurance for the material damage to the site if you require it, and professional indemnity insurance. So best way to figure out what you need is to actually contact a qualified insurance professional like myself, and we can come out and talk to you and tailor a program that meets your needs.
You mentioned public liability as being one that our guys kind of need to be aware of. So can you just explain a little bit more about that? What is it? Why do they need it? What do they need to be aware of with it?
Public liability is hard to explain. So insurers like to use a lot of terminology that in your daily conversation would mean one thing, but in the insurance world means a completely different thing. So public liability insurance is an integral part of your business cover. So basically what it covers is your legal liability in respect to your negligent errors, acts and omissions that cause bodily injury or third-party property damage. So that cover also includes cover for legal expenses for the appointment of a solicitor. That's really important. So in the event of a claim, an insurer will actually appoint a legal personnel to represent you, whether that be a solicitor or a lawyer, and they will actually act on your behalf to make sure that the claim negotiation goes well. It's all important to note that in the event that you do have any bodily injury or third-party property damage incidents on site, that you get an incident report. That's the key thing I'd like to push onto this conversation, is that incident reports are very, very important. Best you do them straight away, because a lot of the time claims don't come for a couple of months in this space, and you might not remember what's actually happened in the incident. So the quicker you get that done with all the information and send that through to me, the easier it's going to make your life in the future.
And do you guys have any templates or anything that they can use just in case nobody's got these set up?
Certainly, I can get a copy to you and you can upload it onto the website and attach it to this video if you want to. It's just the basics of who, what, where, when, why, explanation of the incident, were there any witnesses, if there were, get them to fill out a similar form.
For guys who are in this construction sector, in your experience, what are some common sort of pitfalls and things that they probably need to be aware of to try to avoid in this game?
Yeah, like I said, insurance is a tricky world, so there's a lot of things that you might even not understand that you're doing that you are already doing. So the first and most important thing is your plant and equipment is your declared sums insured. So insurance for plant and equipment is rated on your total sum insured for vehicles with a couple of other things thrown in there. If you put a declared sum insured for a piece of plant at 100,000 and the market value for that is actually 60,000, you're paying a premium based on 100,000, and in the event of a loss, insurers are going to find that market value and only pay you out $60,000.
Right.
They're not going to pay you 100,000.
So you're saying have some sort of an annual review process in place?
Check your sums insured, because the adverse applies as well. If you declare 50,000, it's worth 60,000, you're only going to get $50,000 worth of payment in that. So you can have policies that have cover in there for agreed value.
Yes.
They're usually more expensive, and you are paying for that, and they have to be negotiated with insurers, and not all of them want to do that.
Okay, all right. So that's something you'd suggest probably stay away from that, and just make sure that your values are on point.
Yeah, make sure you're doing an annual review. Go through your sums insured. Make sure that they're adequate, because for me, I hate to see it when you're paying more money than you have to, or the other side of it, that you haven't got the correct declared values and you're out of pocket.
Yep.
So that's a real big pitfall for a lot of contractors out there. Next one's actually contractual agreements. So you'll be signing lots of documents throughout the year. A lot of them will have clauses in there that in respect to release, hold harmless, or indemnification. Why they're important is you're actually signing away your cover if you agree to some of those. So an insurer is only ever going to cover you for your proportionate liability. So we're using 100,000 again. So say there's a claim for 100,000. You're at fault for 30% of that loss. Your insurer will pay you $30,000. They'll reimburse that $30,000 to whichever party they need to be. Now, if someone else is 70% at fault, but in your contract you've agreed to hold them harmless or release them or indemnify them, you're actually responsible for that extra $70,000 under contract. So you could be a further 70%, $70,000 out of pocket just because you signed a document. So it's very important you get lawyers to have a look at all your contractual agreements.
Yep.
And you get your insurers and insurance brokers to have a look at the document as well in the insurance section to make sure your limits actually match up. So that's another pitfall is your policy limits.
Yep.
You need to make sure that you have adequate limits in there. So on the public and products liability, you'll see on a lot of contracts they require you have about $20 million worth of public liability cover.
Yep.
And that's just because you're covering property and bodily injury. So from a bodily injury perspective, one of your biggest losses might be someone becomes a paraplegic and you've got to pay for their medical expenses and future loss of earnings. Could be that you completely damage a site that's worth $20 million to actually fix to the point where you damaged it. So you need to make sure those limits are satisfactory. You also need to make sure the limits match your contractual obligations, because if you have $10 million worth of cover, but you sign a document saying you need $20 million, and if something happens and it's over that $10 million mark, guess what? You're paying for the rest of that money.
So how does that actually evolve in somebody's like day-to-day work processes? They've got a contract there. If they're not too sure about this stuff, can they push it over to you guys to just have a quick review before they sign off?
Yeah. So if you want us to have a look at a contract for you, best thing to do is come to us nice and early when you first get it and say, look, I've got this contract here. Can you please review it for me? And what we can do is, as an insurance broker, we can look at your insurance requirements underneath that. We can't look at the whole contract holistically because we're not qualified to do that. You'll need a lawyer for that. But we can look at those insurance sections and we understand what they're actually saying in those sections as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it could be difficult to navigate if it's not your core day-to-day business. So it's good to have somebody who knows the space to give you that advice when you need it.
Yeah. The other thing on that is that you've got to remember that policies don't cover everything.
Yeah.
No policy out there is going to cover everything. They've all got exclusions. So whilst we all know what the exclusions are, you also need to make sure you read the policy documents we give you and check those exclusions, because you might be doing something that we're not aware of that's excluded underneath the policy, and a simple 5-minute read of those exclusions could really help you with your policy coverage. Some of the main exclusions that you might come across on your public liability is obviously gross and willful neglect. So if you've done something on purpose or you've done something illegal, policy isn't going to cover that. So you need to make sure, obviously, that you're not doing that. It wouldn't become part of your normal business activities. Same goes to your plant and equipment. If you physically drive something and damage it yourself, that's not going to be covered by the policy. It's pretty straightforward on that. Policies are pretty straightforward with most of their exclusions. There's exclusions in there for things like aviation that won't really apply to you, but they're a base general exclusion across all the policies basically in that space. Realistically, exclusions can be endorsed as well. So if there's something in there that is specific to your business, we can get that exclusion removed and put the cover back in place for that.
So if somebody's got insurance, they're already set up, but they're a bit concerned about if they're covered for all the right stuff, how do they go about dealing with changing or at least checking their existing cover? And does it matter if they're at their midterm through their existing policy or if they need to wait to the end? Can you just explain that process?
Yeah, so if you ever want your insurance reviewed, you can do it at any time. So if you are midterm or you're midway through your policy period, you can have someone else have a look at it if you're concerned about it. It is important that you know what you're covered for. So if you don't understand it, please contact someone like myself so we can go have a look through it for you and point out anywhere where you might need additional covers. Best point in time, if you're comfortable with your current insurance, is to approach us about 90 days out from renewal. So that gives us enough time to deal with you without impacting your day-to-day business activities. What will actually happen is if you want us to change your insurer or anything like that, we'll actually negotiate that with the insurance companies for you. So the most important thing is to not burn any bridges. So if you do want to change your insurance company, come to me first. I'll go to the insurer. I'll say to them, look, we're moving the policy away from you because of this, this, and this. And we're moving to this company over here. Now, that allows you to keep that option open in the future because you never know where you're going to go with your insurance. Companies change, the market fluctuates. Whilst they might be more expensive or not have the cover now, 3 years down the track, they might have that coverage available. So my job is to actually come in at the start and say to you, look, I need this information so we can help you and organise your insurance program. So that information can be things such as your annual turnover, employee numbers, what your pieces of plant and equipment are and their sums insured, etc. We'll gather that information probably in a 1 hour sit down where we go through so we can talk to you, get to know you, understand what your business activities are, where your exposures lie, and then we represent you and the insurance market. So we'll go back, take that information, go to those insurers, and we'll get terms for you. Meanwhile, you're doing your normal business activities. We're not impacting on what you have to do. We'll come back to you with our recommendations and say, look, Matt, I have got this plant and equipment policy here and it's worth $20,000, and I have this public liability insurance over here and it's worth $1,000. We're recommending them because of this, and this, and we think you should move from your current insurer to this insurer to make sure that you have adequate cover at a competitive premium. If you don't think you're actually covered properly, I recommend you get onto someone straight away and get them to come and speak with you, or sit down and have a look at your policies to make sure that cover's there, because you don't want to have that hole there and all of a sudden you've got a big issue and it's impacting your business.
Thanks very much for talking some of this stuff through, Taylor. It's really great to explore the issues that are really relevant to iSeekplant's audience. I hope that was informative for anyone who's operating in the construction sector, and the best way to approach their insurance, make sure it's on point, make sure that they are covered, they're getting the best deal. You've also talked through that it's quite easy to set up, and we've potentially got some resources there that we could make available for our viewers as well. So Taylor, thanks very much for coming in and talking this through with us.
Thanks, Matt. And to everyone out there, I look forward to doing your insurance renewals in the future.